Welcome everyone to today's session of CCMA. So just to give you a brief history about CCMA and how this webinar series came to be about. So CCMA today is almost say close to a decade old, and it was formed as an association of the various construction chemical manufacturers from across India. Our motto, of course, as you can see, is building better together. So, which means that we are trying to focus on using construction chemicals the right way for the right kind of applications. So, what basically follows is also a kind of education sharing or a knowledge sharing of sorts, in which we see or in which we discuss various type of construction chemicals and how do you use them, like how do you go about waterproofing correctly, maybe repairs, maybe floorings, admixtures, concrete technology, and so on. So of course the aim of all this is to make construction better, more sustainable, and we are represented today, I would say, by most of the industry. Like you can just take a look on your screen for our member companies. So we are represented by almost the entire organized industry as of today. And here's a managing committee with our complete team who's kind of handling this. So CCMA Web Talks was also put together on a similar footing, with trying to get more to our customers in terms of knowledge. So which is why you'll see that our presentations for today have no specific brand names, but they're more geared towards making the audience, or making the concepts easier so that you can apply the materials better in the long run. So if we continue, then just to give you a brief, so welcome to today's webinar. We would be covering today waterproofing of wet areas and terraces in precast structure. Our speaker for today evening is Engineer Ravindra Babu. He is the Vice President CSG at Pidilite Industries Limited, and he will be talking a lot of concepts and new ideas that you have to use in in properly waterproofing precast structures. So it's quite an interesting topic. But before that, a little bit about our industry as well. So the CC industry basically provides solutions for all construction needs, whether it's at the beginning of construction, which is in enhancing concrete by means of using proper admixtures, in protecting or finishing concrete, which is say more in terms of what we're talking about, like waterproofing, flooring, and maintenance, and those kind of products. And also, in case the two approaches don't work, then also there are solutions for repairing the concrete. So CCMA was formed many years ago with a bunch of aims and objectives, but mostly it was to address common issues related to our industry, educate both our members internally, and to educate and promote the industry outside. That means with regards to our customers. It is also a constructive forum to communicate with government, various other regulatory bodies, and so on. Of course, we organize a lot of workshops, conferences, lectures, seminars, etc., and try to promote a dialogue in how to get to work better and how to make construction more sustainable. And last but not least, we have to establish just and equitable standards. Of course, improve the industry practice or the code of practices in the industry as a whole, and to improve the basic functioning and the basic interaction of the construction chemical and the construction industry. So before we start off, a few key announcements. Firstly, I would recommend to all of you, like we have actually muted most of it, but in case you find your mic on, we request you to please put your mic on mute. And also, I would request you to turn off your camera or turn off your webcam, just so that there is an optimum use of the bandwidth, and you will be able to view the presentation much more clearer. In your view options, you'll also see an option called side by side view. I think you can select that so you can see both the presentation and the speaker at the same time. In case of questions during the session, we request you to send the questions to CCMA webinars. That will be one of the options that you see in your chat box. So please mark all your questions to that particular chat box, and please mention your name, your organization, and question two is not relevant today as we have only one speaker. Of course, our next webinar will be coming up mid-September, dealing with another line of specialty construction chemicals. Look out for an announcement soon, and we will see you soon with that. For any further questions, please feel free to write to us at ccmmwebinars@gmail.com. So with this, I would request Engineer Ravindra Babu to please start up with this presentation, and also to give us a brief introduction of himself, and please start off with the presentation. Thank you, sir. Ravindra, come online, please.
Hi, good evening. Am I audible now?
Yes.
Okay. I would like to share my screen.
Perfect.
Okay. Yeah.
Please go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the discussions. And thank you very much to CCMA for creating this platform. As Sunny was mentioning, this is more of a sharing the experiences. Not only that, we as a manufacturers need to upgrade the standards, relevant standards, and the product application levels in the industry. That is one of the core intention of CCMA, which probably we all put effort in those lines. So with that brief, as Sunny has introduced, my name is Ravindra Babu. I'm working with Pidilite as a Vice President Customer Service Group. A little bit of not taking much time, a brief background. I have been working in construction chemical industry almost since 25 years. 1996 I joined on a construction chemical company. So from 1996 onwards, I've been continuing this industry, which gives a lot of knowledge, which gives a lot of information. So in this forum, I would like to share and have more interactive. With that brief introduction, I would start my discussion. Thank you. Today, I would be more of a discussion of precast structure waterproofing. So when I say waterproofing, actually that is the most relevant thing today because of the space constraints and the kind of structures is coming up, the pace of the structures. And as per BS, we could all see one point of a time there was a grade 1, 2, 3 for the water permeability tolerances and usages. But nowadays, we don't see any such thing. Everything is, they look for dry, dwellable areas to make use of maximum space with the high value. Then the climatic changes, and then a lot of topography changes. Today, I have many times when we were discussing with consultants, they say my water table level at so and so level, why should I go for this kind of system? And all those arguments used to be there. But nowadays, the kind of urbanization is happening and kind of adjacent structures, what it is coming up and occupying the drainage areas, reclamation, all leading to many surprises when actually the building is occupied and when put into use. So the third thing is, again, the pace of the construction, the type of construction and quality of the material, which are all leads to the need of the waterproofing. And when we look into that, most of the durability failures will happen due to the water leakage, which corrodes the reinforcement of the structures. So when we look at this, this shows how critical and how necessity the waterproofing it shows. And in one of the forum, I read it, beautiful sentence. They said, don't ask me what is the cost of waterproofing. Just ask me if you don't do waterproofing, how much it will cost for a building. So that's the thing. It's the most critical, but however, most of the recent times we have seen it is the most neglected baby waterproofing in the structural designing time, where they don't consult the specialist manufacturers to have the right specification. So this leads to a lot of challenges while executing projects. So when we look into the basic principles of waterproofing, for the waterproofing needs to get successful in any structure. As a waterproofing standalone can never be successful. to keep this structure dry. So when we look into that, the most important thing is the design of the waterproofing as a system for the specific structure and the workmanship. Both I can say go 50-50. Whatever the best design, if there is a lack of workmanship and adaptability, then the whole things will not be purposefully intended, whatever we have been designing. So either waterproofing it is 100% or it's a failure. There is nothing even 98-99%. So design and workmanship should go hand in hand. Then the quality of the concrete. This is the one which whenever we discuss with the specifiers or clients, this point itself doesn't comes into the discussion most of the time. So quality of the concrete is the basic which needs to be having a standards for the successful waterproofing system. Then the product compatibility, it depends on type of the structure, usage, topographical areas where we are doing, and the part of the structure. So we have to choose the right product compatibility for the waterproofing which it has been intended in the structure. Then sealing around the joints and junctions. This is also very critical for the successful water tightness of the building when we look into that. So we would be discussing that upon, and then specifically in precast also we would be touching the filling the connections. And just to brief you before I carry on these presentations, a lot of our members already presented on the precast connections and sealing the joints very in detail for the presentations. However, since it is a part of the waterproofing, I would like to touch upon and I would like to add what exactly we expect that specification and standards needs to be in there. So connections, we all heard these definitions quite a number of times. It is to transmit the force between the structural components of precast structure, and then it gives the overall stability for the purpose which it has been built. Then strength to the structure, and finally the connections needs to be filled completely. This is the most important for us to when we take in the view of waterproofing aspect as well, not only the structural. So what would be using to fill as a very basic definitions which we have been known from a long time. It is to fill the gap between the connections which makes it to behave like a monolithic to transfer the loads and then to also sustain the to the live loads and the deflection which it has been intended to design. So it's a very, very critical material which will be used to fill the gap. So of course it is made up of fine aggregates, cement, cementitious material, polymers and the water. This is the grout ingredients as a very basic thing. But when we select the grout, so we should have some level of performance from the grout. When we look into that, it should be able to transfer the load successfully without disintegrating, cracking or failing for the compressive loads. The next thing is, very important thing is to complete filling of void. There should not be any gap should be developed. There should not be any shrinkage because of bleeding or because of lack of flow when there is a heavy congested reinforcement. So it should fill up completely. Then what we design in the grout by selecting as well as a manufacturer by specifying is it should be high compressive strength. Then there should not be any segregation or bleeding while pouring the grouts. Then expansion compensation. And it should not have either hardened shrinkage or plastic shrinkage. That is C-type grouts. That is what will be specifiers select while picking up the performance of the grouts. And most important thing, apart from all these things, is flow characteristics. This is the one thing which plays an important role to achieve the complete void filling and then have an effective bearing area as per design greater than 85%. So this is the very basic structure of the grout where performance requirements for the users or specifiers will look broadly to start with. So this has been discussed as I told earlier in detail. So I will just keep my discussion specifically for a couple of properties, what is very, very important for to deliver the intended outputs of the grouts. So it should be basically C-type. So C-type means, in the sense, it will be dual shrinkage compensation, that is plastic shrinkage compensation, as well as the hardened shrinkage compensation. So this is the one type of the grout basically should be used. Then effective bearing area targeted should be greater than 85%, but always it is good to design for 90% when we do the testing, but standard says it should be greater than 85%. Then plastic and hardened shrinkage as per STM 827, it will be measured. But the important thing here is we should see that it should not be plastic shrinkage compensation expansion should not go beyond 1%. So that's how it should be designed, a good grout. So I will come to the most critical part where nowadays we don't see much in the specification with the specifiers other than the compressive strength, flow, 1 day, 3 day strength they talk. I would rather give the most importance for the grout to be successful for the achieving the intended usage is the flowing ability, fluidity of the grout. So definitely that grout, wherever we are designing with less than 2.36 mm size of the aggregate, we should pass as per ASTM-C 939 fluidity test, where the flex time should be around 30 to 35 seconds. 1.7 liters grout will be filled up in the cone, and when they see that free flow from the cone, the material should be emptied in 30 to 35 seconds. This gives the right range of fluidity of the grout when we really pour into the congested reinforcement and all other places, even in the column footing grouting where there is a minimum space is there, grout to flow. This is the best specification grout which can achieve all the intended results. So rest of the things, then the next one is for our waterproofing per se is concerned is the joints. The joints is the intentional joints, either expansion or the shrinkage joints or isolation joints, and one more unintentional is the construction joints. It will become an obvious. So these joints has to be taken care in the precast segments waterproofing. The most critical thing, because the water tightness of the structure in precast will have many joints. So we need to design properly with the right usage of sealants. So let's see briefly at the outlook of this. We will have an expansion joints, are all we know basic, which is intended to movement of the structure for the thermal movements, which has been designed. Then we have a precast wall panel joints when we look into the building. So when we see this, the joint gaps may be, sealing may be many different methods. It has been, as per the designs, it will be there. Again, these were, I don't get into much detail of it since we have already discussed about the joints in previous. The only intention of keeping this is to address the what right kind of a sealants we need to select so that the waterproofing will be successful in the precast structures. Today, all buyers have become so educated. The latest 2-3 bigger projects, mega projects, precast, whatever is happening, there the clients started asking more and more about the joints in the precast, how the builder is going to make it watertight for them, how many years. That is the education level what they have now for the precast. So another thing is non-moving joints, what will be there in the structure. So all these joints to be addressed with the right sealant. So when we want to choose the sealant, it depends upon the anticipated movement in the joints, the temperature which it has been exposed, then the climatic conditions, what the part of the country the structure is there. Then most important is expected life of the sealant. So the choices, major choices, whether the consultant while designing, he will consider that. And the features, when they say that, the main thing is there should not be any bubble formations because of any isocyanates in respect to moisture in presence. Formulation should not lead to any bubble formulations. Then it should be good adhesion should be there. and it should never sag. These are all very basic requirements which consultant demands. Moment accommodation factor as per the designs. And most important, apart from all these things, in addition, is excellent weather durability, which is leads to the life of the sealant, then the UV resistance. But one single most important thing, where there is a regions like Mumbai or Mangalore, or where there heavy rainfall is there, most of the times we don't include the specification of hydrolysis test. So when we go for such a critical precast structures, we should insist on hydrolysis test for the sealants which is continuously exposed to heavy rainfall, either in the roofs or facades, which will be exposed to water. So they will specify this with the standards which qualifies ASTM C920, as we all aware. It's a single component or multiple component. And then whether they are using in facade staining or non-staining grade what they want, all those things will be chosen exactly as per ASTM C920. And then what they will do is mainly they will qualify in ASTM C1246 for the durability, heat of aging, weight loss or chalking when it exposed to the UV. This is what they qualify. Rest all is very standard. They see the hardness, moment, MAF, moment accommodation capability, and tag-free time. But similar standard when we see ISO 11600, according to the all 13 classification, the most important and critical what ISO classification very clearly they say, the tensile strength maintained when it is exposed to water, whether it's continuous rain for continuously 3 months, 2 months, or immersed under the water, the sealant tensile strength should be maintained. At the same time, it should never ever get affected adhesion by exposure to this water. So these two always good to get qualified, specifically when we go for the joints treatment in the precast structures. So what kind of a sealant generally it has been chosen is either single part polyurethane or silyl extracted polyether MS sealants. Both are good enough to get into the specification of precast building. So at the nutshell bullet points, when we see, they look for the service life minimum of 10. Anything greater than that, if the high-end sealants are accepted, up to 20 years is good, and that needs to be substantiated with the standards for the life of the sealant. Then high UV resistance, and as I mentioned, the exposure to continuous water because of the rain or the roof, whatever sealants when we put, if it is exposed to water, it is always safer side in precast segments buildings to get the qualification of hydrolysis test. This is the one point specifically we all need to upgrade in our specification when we go for the precast structures sealant specifications. So with this very in brief, after treating the proper joints and the filling up the connections, then our waterproofing will be on the system, what we are going to specify and how good that is the system. So for all precast podium structures or the roof slab, whatever is there, the hybrid polyurea is the one technology, the latest technology, which is very interesting. And to start with, why hybrid? What is pure polyurea? We'll be seeing in the subsequent slides. But to start with, this is the combination of isocyanates and then a mixture of polyol and amines. That is what makes the hybrid polyurea. And we would be discussing on this particular technology suitability of precast structures waterproofing. So the most popular for above ground level for the precast as well as castino is the liquid applied membranes. With various technologies are available. Polyurethane, polyureas are available. Acrylic technology is available. Bituminous based products are also available. When we look into this specifically polyurethane, polyurea, we have 1K polyurethane systems, then 2K pure polyurea, and then the hybrid polyurethanes. polyurea is available. When just look into that while picking up the products, we looked at 1 kpu. It's very easy to apply. Either we can spray with airless spray, or otherwise we can use the roller applications. Then it will have a limited mechanical properties, and the 1K product as a basically known as moisture cure. It depends on various aspects of curing, rate of curing as well as the efficiency of curing, depending upon the environmental conditions. So this is generally good for small span suitable of roof and podium, where there is no heavy equipments are required, reactors are required, and easy to apply for the small structures. So next option is the polyurea, which in India 2003 they have started specifying and looking at to see the suitability in the civil engineering constructions. So pure polyurea, mechanical properties are fantastic. They have got a very high tensile and elongation is limited. But when we see the waterproofing requirement for the civil engineering aspect, it is less flexible. So that is how it makes little bit rigid, but it can be used for any size of the structure. It has got a very high performance, but it was always a factor of concern of the flexibility for the waterproofing, which civil engineering industry requires. So there comes the hybrid technology, which is again used a reactor, fast cure, and it has got equally good mechanical properties, but it has been designed for the more flexibility, high flexible. And that major difference between polyurea, pure and hybrid is, in pure polyurea, it's only amines and then the iso will be there. Whereas in hybrids, it is a mixture of polyols and amines, which has altered the mechanical properties, which needs to be achieved for the waterproofing, which is more flexible. So this is the one product which is widely accepted, proved in the industry today in terms of durability, suitability as well. So this is again, as I said, polyurea, polyurethane, but generally it has been termed as a hybrid polyurea. So let's see the uniqueness of this product. So again, when we get into this hybrid polyurea, polyurethane, two grades are available. One is regular hand applied. Next one is the reactor spray applied. So if you see the difference and positioning of the product again, this hand applied, mostly it will be used for small areas where using the reactors is not feasible. That is number one. And then when the areas of application is considerably small areas, so under these circumstances, this is the most suitable product with a tensile strength of 4 to 6 MPa with elongation of 600%. This is the hand applied cold spray material will be used. So when compared to that, the spray applied, which is again plural spray, as I mentioned, reactor will be used. We have to observe the mechanical properties in this. It has got a brilliant mechanical properties. Why it is so unique? It has got a very high tensile strength, like 15 MPa, anywhere between 11 to 15 will be designed. Elongation anywhere between 300 to 500% can be designed. And most interesting thing is the puncture resistance. Being flexible, having a brilliant tensile strength in the design according to the needs, still it is versatile material will have such a high puncture resistance. This has made a unique, where no other waterproofing material technology can deliver both flexibility and high tensile strength, as well as the resistance to the mechanical abuses on the membrane, like puncture resistance, abrasion resistance. So this has made much more fit into the groove for suitable of specification of waterproofing of podium and precast roof and other areas. So what actually we need to be focusing on choosing the membrane properties of polyurea. When we see, a lot of times it has got no meaning. We have been observing in the industry. We talk only about the high tensile strength, or many times we talk about the high elongation, 600, 800%. So when we see as a standalone property of either tensile strength and elongation, will make no value additions to the waterproofing membrane. So what exactly we need to see is, always we should focus on crack bridging ability. That is as per EN 1062, both dynamic and static. So all these mechanical properties of elongation, tensile and tear strength, all put together should deliver our crack bridging ability in dynamic conditions. That is the actual output we need to see from all the combination of these properties. Tear strength, why it is so important, not only because of the constructional practices of users. When there is a shear force acts in the precast slab or even in the podium slab, when the joints are there, so it should able to sustain. So all these properties we will be seeing with the small clippings in the subsequent slides, which makes us to look at more convincing. Then next important thing, what we need to write, deliver or expect in the specification is a recovery of elongation recovery. So many times we talk about all the properties as isolation, like tensile or elongation. So in future, on the way ahead, always the specification we should see from our product for deliverable to be put in the BOQs or crack bridging ability as per standards, elongation recovery. This is the most important. So as I mentioned, the advantage of this polyurea technology is, apart from all these things, we will be able to achieve very good abrasional resistance of this material. So it has got a great, like flooring product, it has got a high abrasional resistance to the traffic. So in total, this is what the major output from the polyurea which we need to be focusing on offering the product. So then the next important thing comes. Many of our systems, building will be designed for 40 years to 80 years, 100 years, depending upon the structures. But when we talk of the waterproofing, they will equally see what is the life of the system. So there should be always a way to analyze what is the working life of the product through some guidelines and certifications. So when we see that, one of the good guidelines certification which is available for us is European Technical Approval, that is ETA. They have specifically guidelines for liquid applied roof waterproofing kits. So that is ETAG 005. In that, there is a method, analysis, test to qualify the expected life of the system, whether it's in 10 years, 15 years or 25 years. How do they do that? They have a detailed methodology for that. But when we see as an key points, they will be doing the dynamic and static indentation test, then aging media, including heat, water and UV radiations. These are all the standard tests what they will do to arrive where correlate what will be the life of the coating, depending upon the formulation of that, how much it can sustain based on these values. That is how they do. So when we talk about the life, there will be many manufacturers, many specification we say. Some people, sometimes it says 10 years, sometimes life. I'm talking about the life, not the warranty. So they talk about 10, 15, 25 years. So how to arrive that should be supported with the right certification of the product always, which makes sure to keep all the quality products in the same platform to choose for the consultant. So this should be reflecting in our specifications as well as technical data sheets. So in continuation, that this is how they categorized based on the test, W1, W2 and W3 categories. that which falls under expected working life. Based on that, they would be estimating it 5, 10, and 25 years. So this is how we should make sure that the specification drawn with our products and standard certifications. Then again, one more challenge will be there for us when we go. Many times we have seen different thicknesses proposal to consultants. So when we see that there is a clear specification which talks based on the concrete profile, based on the shear stress it develops in the moments, and based on the temperatures what it goes, any general liquid applied membranes to deliver, it should be minimum 1.5 mm. This is what ASTM C898 says. So accordingly, most of the product will be designed. So and next thing is, when we talk about fast cure products, always there is always a risk of pinholing in this. The pinholing may happen for various reasons. One is the outgassing of the air which is there, or moisture in the pores of the concrete if it is not completely filled up by the primer. That is number one. Number two, the concrete itself. That is why I have chosen this from the general forum, this particular video. There may be a lot of undulations in the concrete. There may be a lot of damages in the concrete. When the fast cure hits the surface, there is a chances of creating the pinholes, because the wetting time of the product will be very, very low. So this is the most critical as per me. In the specification, we should add that holiday testing of the membrane after the application is a must, to make sure that when we apply 35-40,000 square meters area, we would not be able to certify unless we do this. It is a pinhole free area because of the fast cure. So it should become a mandatory in future for us when we go and specify the fast cure polyurea to do holiday testing. It's a small clipping, around less than a minute. I would like to play it for you. Yeah. So this is a small demo. We will have a couple of kinds of holiday testing equipment. Another one is with a long roller kind of a thing is there, which I will show in subsequent photograph when we do for a larger areas. Yeah. This then as the technology goes higher and up, achieving the complications will be there unless it is all handled properly. So out of that, few common, very critical points I would like to highlight in this discussion. One is achieving the mechanical properties. We said fantastic, it's a high mechanical properties achievable, which is more flexible, high tensile, including the good abrasional resistance and all. So how do we achieve this? When we see the spray equipment of fast cure polyurea, it's a reactor which will be spraying the material at 75 to 80 degree temperature. Not only in the machine, before spraying, the entire hose of hose length, which is the heat insulated, entire the material travel to the hose, it will be 75 to 80 degree temperature. And when it comes out of the gun to separate
Mr. Ravindra, I think your voice is breaking up.
ISO and amine 6X. It has to be maintained at 8 to 8. Okay. Okay.
I think your voice is breaking up.
1 second. I don't know this LAN. It shows. 1 second. Is it okay now?
Yeah, now it's better. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you very much. Sorry for that inconvenience. So it has to be sprayed at 75 to 80-degree temperature. And then the next important thing is the pressure, whatever the spray pressure, it goes at 2400 psi. If there is any variation in this, apart from the mixing proportion 1:1, then the end result of sprayed membrane will not be equal to what technical data sheets what we are claiming. So we have to be very, very careful. As I told you in the beginning itself, for any waterproofing, workmanship is very, very important. Awareness is important. So what is the standard practice at the site to achieve this is sample. Actually, we have to spray the membrane every day before starting the job and then every day at the end of the job. And this needs to be recorded and kept it at any time for testing the properties. And then one most important thing as a thumb rule, what they do is the material specific gravity should be more than 1 when we spray this, because the mixed density will be 1.03, 1.04, in that range will be there. If there is any lacuna in temperature or pressure, if specific gravity goes less than 1, because of that air pockets in the membrane, then the whole intended idea and mechanical properties will not be able to achieve. So how do we make sure at the site is every day when we spray a small area in the beginning, about a square foot of specific gravity, if we achieve more than 1, those sprayed membrane will get sink in the tumbler. If the membrane has not achieved greater than 1 specific gravity, then it starts floating on the water. That is the very indicative test it gives. It's a very powerful test we have to do every day at site. And if it's spraying, then go back, adjust the equipment to achieve the required properties. So this needs to be done at every day at the site before applying and end of the job. Then there is nothing compromise. Whatever the technological product, surface preparation should be the best for the adhesion property. So just to brief about the required, either it should be CSP 4 or 5, the kind of surface profile what is required for this. Generally, it will be done either grit or short blasting, or many times if we are able to, it's in a peak summer, if there's a huge areas are there, what we do is we use around 250 to 300 psi water jet, which will be used for the preparation of concrete profile, removing the latents. And the only thing is then the surface should be allowed to be dried for sufficient time, 3 to 4 days, and under the bright sun. Then what we will be doing, check the moisture and then go with the moisture insensitive epoxy primer. So that is one of the method. Otherwise, the most easiest and popular method which has been used is the grid blasting, captive short blasting to achieve this surface profile, which is the most important for the success of waterproofing membrane adhesion to the concrete surface. Then apart from that, as I told you, higher the technology, higher the care should be there to get the fantastic results what we claim. Most important thing what we need to see is the dew point. So it plays a very, very important role. As we all know, when straight temperature is less than the dew point temperature, condensation will happen on the prime surface. Because of that, whatever the waterproofing systems we apply in that situation, there will be an adhesion failure, or there could be very less adhesion. So how to control this? First and foremost thing, if the atmosphere RH, relative humidity proofing membranes, any spray water, then 3 point urea, so that it leads to the adhesion. Am I audible, Sunny? Hello,
It's
Sunny,
breaking up
am
a
I
little
audible?
bit. Yeah, it was breaking up a little bit, but now it seems to be clear.
Okay,
I think it's just jumping a little bit in between the
yeah,
network.
because whenever that internet some variation, that's
Yeah, yeah. You can continue, sir.
that's the reason. Sorry. Then few more critical points. The fast cure product has a very less wetting time. This might result in pinhole. So what we will do to avoid this, knowing this, what we will do is first and foremost thing, we will use as a first coat highly penetrative low viscous primer. This is the first thing we need to do. After doing this, same the primer, we should use it as a scratch coat with a dry mechanical bonding. It will suffice with this process of primer, so that it will be filled up good enough to avoid the pinholes. This is one of the basic thing what we need to do in the polyurea. Then we would be going ahead with the spray of polyurea on the prime surface. And as I mentioned, for the huge areas, we have to do the holiday checking, which would be part and parcel of our specification. There is a design specific equipment, whether we do it on precast slab or podium slab or a bridge deck. We check for this before going for any subsequent treatment of polyurea. So the next thing is we have to see the cracks, whatever is, if it is there less than 2 mm and or the greater. What happens is when these shrinkage cracks have developed through and through, when the thermal stresses because of the flexural strength or the shear stress of the concrete, then the crack widening and movements will happen. So keeping in mind in the differential temperatures and the kind of movement expected in the crack, as a just first line of defense, what we would do is we will always treat thing, we will not addition, we will put a bond breaker before spraying the polyurea. Similar way, when there is less than 2 mm cracks, we use flexible resin grout, which can penetrate into the gaps and fill by itself. So this is very important thing, process to be keep it in mind while treating the cracks before going ahead with the spray of the polyurea systems. And this is one of the just side picture what we have been shown. And now I would be just playing some 2 to 3 minutes of video. Few of our members audience might have seen, few might have not seen. Why specifically we do this is to show whatever we talk about the elongation recovery, tensile, all those things. How fast curing? How do we achieve? This is the demo. Even we do that in webinar as well. So it's an interesting video. I'll just play a couple of minutes. You could see this is an art cartoon box which we are spraying polyurea straight away on that. You could see the sturdiness, elongation, recovery with flexibility. This demonstration shows the tensile strength as well as fast cure. We have been spraying polyurea on surface of water as well. Just you could see here, before it sets within 3 to 6 seconds. It doesn't even flow more than an inch. And shows the tear strength of the product, as I was mentioning. Even the concrete slab is broken, but the membrane doesn't get teared off or comes out. The same watermelon has been coated with polyurea. Yeah. So that's a brief about the polyurea and demonstration to show the properties what can be achieved. So I will now move on to wet area waterproofing. This is the most critical day to day for the living comfort, both for the builders as well as for the dwelling purpose of the residents. This is one area which needs to be taken care very well, whether it's a precast segment or cast in situ or whatever it is. So when we see briefly about the wet area waterproofing, there may be a lot of leakages what we have been seen if he has not done properly from the corners of the slab, from the top floor, then pipe penetrations and the door seals. These are all the vulnerable area, the wet areas where the most critical waterproofing failures happens in a building. So the presence of moisture will be always there as the wet areas by name itself. Then the walls where the showers will be there, continuous splash of the water will be there. Then lot of congested areas by design for completing the waterproofing itself, the kind of system, there will be lot of constraints which will be a challenging. Then there could be some just a second, the internet is wobbling again. 1 second. Yeah, I hope now it is okay. Okay. Then the addition will be should be that choose whatever the systems we are choosing should have a better additions to the substrate, which should not have any limitations. Then the compatibility to the for the protection systems what we do. So generally, these are all the points what we keep it in. So in the mind, we will see the better bonding whether if there is some moisture or residual moisture might be there or whatever said reason, better bonding should be there, what we choose. Then it should not be too thin coatings. It should be minimum thickness of the coating, anywhere between 1 to 2 mm, not less than that. And then bore packing, which we have to use the right material and right specification, which is the key for the success of wet areas waterproofing. Then the special care at the joints. Whatever joints, we have to use the right jointing tapes so that there won't be any slight abrupt cut edge for the waterproofing membranes, to which in the long run it might pose as a risk for our system. So when we see that there is a Singapore Code of Practice which is very well defined the kind of system for the wet areas, and they are encouraging it, which has got a long job references, successful of the job for the many years. So what they in that, as per the specification, the most efficient is they treat it as a cementitious system, that is acrylic cementitious system. Apart from that, polyurethanes are there. Then acrylic, which is the styrene butadiene or pure acrylic, which will be mixed. Systems are available in the code of practice for the wet areas, but most popular is cementitious system as of now, because of various properties. It is adhesions of that even in the moisture surface, then the compatibility of that, performance of the product with, there is no much cracks there. So it should be static crack accommodation with cementitious system can very well deliver in that. So generally cementitious system is the very popular for the wet area specification. We see that what generally our industries, manufacturers are offering is that there are polymer modified waterproof coating. As I mentioned, it is either SBR based or acrylic based, which will be mixed with the cement and applied using the brush. Then acrylic cementitious coating, which is very, very popular in India now, which is a pre-mixed material of cementitious with polymer mixed powder. And the SBR liquid or acrylic liquid will be there.
Mr. Ravindra, your voice is again stuttering a
Then
bit.
this is higher performance.
Can you just say that again, because your voice was just stuttering
Oh my
like in
God.
the last
One second. I will, I will try to switch the internet.
last 20
Is it okay now?
Yeah, now it's better.
Okay, I change. Issues is there in the service provider. Sorry for that. You have to kindly bear for next 15 minutes.
No issue.
Okay. So as I was mentioning, polymer modified coating is there. Generally, what manufacturers offer and specifiers are specifying in the documents. Generally, this is the SBR or the acrylic, which mixed with the cement, as I mentioned. Acrylic cementitious coating, which is well proven, very popular in the industry. It's a pre-packed material with the polymer liquid and the powder pond. Then the new technology, what is today overcome the shortcomings of acrylic cementitious, is the water-based copolymer coating for the high-end structures, what they see. Then the polyurethane coatings, whatever is available from a long time, very popular product, single part or two part polyurethanes. Mostly they use 1K polyurethane. When we look into that, what product choose on what, how it goes better. Polymer cement coating, as I mentioned, it is SBR or latex mixed. So quality control at site is a challenge. Then thickness cannot be maintained in that. And it will, the quality of that will be left out to the person who would be applying that in the portion. These are all the shortcomings is there. Polymer cementitious coating when we get it done for the projects. Then next one is most popular specification, as we mentioned, well proven, is acrylic cementitious coating. This is pre-packed, good quality control, right thicknesses can be maintained so that performance will be determined, and it can go even on the moist concrete, that is residual moisture, even if it is slightly higher, doesn't matter. So it can have a proper bonding and perform. So the next one is what we have has been using for high-end structures all these days is polyurethane coating. As we know, 1K PUs has got a very good tensile and elongation, crack bridging, even though there won't be any much thermal due to thermal variations cracks. It will never develop or movement. Only static cracks will be there in the sunken slab while treating. Still, it gives an added advantage PU if there is any slight movements in the cracks. So it gives the better life. But the biggest challenge when we do the waterproofing of sunken slab is polyurethane coating should have the dry surface. That means residual moisture should be less than 5% in the concrete. That is the one challenge always we have. By any chance, if it doesn't follow, there will be always an issue of adhesion failures in the polyurethane. So now the latest technology has become more popular now to overcome the shortcomings even in the system is water-based copolymer coating. This is highly flexible and elastic. It can go on even the wet surface. It's a water-based formulation, absolutely no problem. And this product has been certified as under green label. So when we go for the lead points and all, this helps a lot to take the environmental friendly product, and it doesn't require any protection screed when we go for the flat slab kind of sunken slab, where directly the tiles can go above this. So these are all the few advantages in terms of contributing towards the wet areas waterproofing with the water-based copolymer coatings. So when we see this acrylic cementitious coating, which is very popular, which has got elongation, different products, formulations from different manufacturers, from 50 to 120 it can be done. And crack bridging, when we talk, this is a static crack bridging, is up to 2 mm it can take. But only thing, as we know, it doesn't contribute in terms of the tensile strength. That's why we only say use for wet areas where there is a static crack. The polyurethane, good tensile elongation is there, good adhesion is there, provided if the surface should be conducive for the application of PU in terms of the moisture. Then the water-based copolymer coating, very good elongation is there, which is 250% for sunken slab. Then the tensile strength with 1.5 MPa, brilliant, and the crack bridging ability is good. So it overcomes the shortcoming of PU for the substrate requirement, and it's better specification than the acrylic cementitious. That is how this specifications is getting upgraded in the wet areas with the water-based copolymer coatings nowadays. And this is the brief sectional picture what we have been put. This is what we were mentioning. We can go straight away with the tiles even on the vertical surface as well as the horizontal. It doesn't require a protective screed like how we designed for the cementitious, acrylic cementitious coating. And detailing, yes, devil is in detail for the sunken slab. We have to make sure that we use the bore packing with the non-shrink free flow material. Then we have to use the gap seal tapes on the pipe so that different kind of a material should not give away the sleeve gaps which may be the source of leakage. So this is the detailing which we have to take care specifically when we do the wet areas waterproofing. So with that brief, I would like to conclude today's my discussion. And thank you very much for patience listening with the uncomfortability of little bit wavery of wobbling of my internet connection.
Thank you, Mr. Ravindra. That was I think quite a fantastic overview of all the different things that you can do both for especially in terms of roof waterproofing as well as wet areas and particularly bathrooms. So I think we can move on to a few questions. I think what we can do is you can probably stop your screen share and we can just get it on on the meeting mode. Maybe you can turn your camera on so people can have a look at you.
The only thing is camera. Again, the signal is weak, so I don't prefer to
Okay, no
switch
problem.
on my video again. It will start wobbling. That's the reason.
Okay, no problem. Let us take a few questions. The first one is by Mr. Pankaj Singh. So he's asking, is there any formula for getting the DFT of any liquid applied membranes like PU using solid content or density?
See, there are two things in that thickness. One is if when it is 100% solids, then it will be straight away the thickness is measured. Whatever the wet film thickness is there, equivalent to dry film thickness. And second thing is measuring is when we spray on the surface. Okay, so we have a non-destructive equipment which is available to measure the thickness then and there itself. What is the thickness of the membrane which we have sprayed on the concrete slab? It gives the thickness of polyurea, then it gives the thickness of primer, it gives separately. So Pesometer is there, that is the brand name, which I can share it with you later. So that is available, which is a must to have it at the site during the application as a part and parcel of tools and tackles which they should be there. So any point of time, either the consultant, project management consultants, anytime they can come and check while work is going on. Even otherwise, even after completion of work, anytime randomly they can come and check the thickness of the sprayed applied membrane. Why I would prefer that to be as a part of application toolkit, because it is first thing we should make ourselves sure we are delivering at the right thickness. So polyurea is such a versatile material. When we spray back to back, within a minute you can walk on the surface and you can check the thicknesses. If it is there any variation, immediately you can spray on that to maintain the thicknesses. So this is the thing what probably is a good enough to have addressed this issue, and I hope I answered your point.
Okay, thank you. The next question that we have is, I think it's basically kind of an opinion thing. This is by Mr. Srinivasan Natarajan. What is your view on MMA membranes?
MMA membranes is also a kind of high-end technology which has got a very good advantage, which can straight away go on moist concrete. It doesn't appeal any kinds of an extra care in terms of that. But the limitations of MMA. So when we see the methyl methacrylate technology, actually the technology itself has been formulated where there is extreme cold countries where there is a temperature either 0 or 2 degree, 3 degrees there. The material curing and setting is a big challenge of any other technology. So they started using MMA technology. When we use the same technology in the tropical grade country, like in India, where there is a high temperatures are there, one is the challenge of application is there. You have to really see the matching the catalyst and application challenges are there. And if that is the product formulation criteria to set in the cold weather, so that is not really a need for the tropical grade countries either like Dubai or India or any other hot climatic country. Otherwise, even that technology is very good to go ahead as an waterproofing.
Excellent, thank you. The next question we have is the water-based copolymer coating, is it a hybrid polyurethane?
No, it is styrene based coating, which is water based. It's not hybrid polyurethane.
Okay. The next question is by the last question was from DP Sen Gupta sir. The next one is by Mr. Rakesh KR. How fast is the setting time of hybrid polyurea in seconds?
Almost we have a different design of setting time. If you see an average of any hybrid polyurea, it will be designed by 40 to 50 seconds.
For 42? Hello?
Gelling time is 40 seconds.
40 seconds. Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you. Then this next question is from Mr. Saumen Maiti. In case water-based copolymer coating, it is mentioned as adhesion to concrete is 1 MPa. Is it sufficient for waterproofing?
Yeah, 1 MPa, as I told very clearly, 1 MPa is good enough by standards, number one. Number two is when we talk about the wet areas, there won't be any thermal stress on that to expect any sorts of either developing the cracks or anything. It is more of a damp proof kind of a thing what we require for a continuous wetness. Even if we take cementitious acrylic, which is the most popular today specification, all say 1 to 1.2 newtons per millimeter square adhesion, not more than that. Because concrete cohesive strength itself is 1.5, as we all know.
So I think that means it is for most applications quite okay. The
Yeah,
next question again from Mr.
that's right.
Rakesh KR is, what is the major difference between polyurethane and polyurea? Also the performance on waterproofing.
Yeah. Talking about the basic technology when we start, polyurethanes is a reactive material of iso and polyol, whereas polyurea is a reaction of amines and isocyanates by chemistry itself. So, what's the advantage of polyurea chemistry over polyurethane is, as I mentioned very clearly, the polyurea, it gives both high mechanical properties along with the flexibility. Whereas polyurethanes, either it will be flexible, but it doesn't contribute to the mechanical properties. As an example, even the roof deck car park area straight away, which polyurethane can go. In a lot of European countries, it is very popular specification. It goes as a wearing surface come waterproofing, polyurea on the roof deck. Similar way, when we go for huge water treatment plants where there will be a lot of abrasion with a lot of particles there, still they go with the polyurea because it contributes both mechanical as well as flexibility. When we come to huge podium slabs, it contributes, it can take huge dynamic crack accommodation and it can take the abuses of the moments mechanical, which is most essential there because of the shear stress. The tear resistance should be very high there to improve upon our specification. That is how the polyurea takes the advantage in terms of the technology to make the much robust waterproofing solutions in the civil engineering industry.
Okay, thank you. The next question I think is from Mr. Pankaj Singh. I think the first part, it's a two-part question. I think the first part has been covered. Is the water-based coating a kind of cementitious coating? I think I've already covered this in the last question. And the second one is there a specific code which suggests a minimum DFT depending on type of application like podiums or terraces, etc.?
Podium and terraces I have clearly shown in my presentation as per ASTM-C 898, it should be minimum 1.5 mm thick for terraces and podiums.
Okay. That's good. Then the next question is by Mr. Prerak Mehta. It says, is any silicate-based coating applied as primer can help to polymer-based coating waterproofing? Bitumen emulsion-based waterproofing liquid applied coating. So uh, I'm not very sure. I'll just read it out again. Is any silicate-based coating applied as primer can help to polymer-based coating or bitumen emulsion-based waterproofing liquid applied coating?
As far as waterproofing is concerned, really we don't require any silicate to go and crystallize with the unreacted lime and make the surface hard. Mostly that technology helps while we do the surface priming of flooring, where we have a certain of issues with the concrete because of the mistakes have been done in the curing, or if there is any other dusting issues are there in the flooring, before going with the resin topping, that technology is used. As far as waterproofing is concerned, that is not the mandatory. Rather, we look for the primer which can penetrate and seals the pores completely and to have a chemical bond for the subsequent coatings.
Okay. Excellent. So the last, I think, two questions we have. The first one is by Mr. Srinivasan Natarajan. It says, does polyurea membrane require protection screen? If so, should sand be sprinkled?
Huh. Polyurea, it's not mandatory. It doesn't demand for any protection screen. Even that can be open to UV, provided if we give a coat of UV resistant coating of aliphatic, which is available. That is number one. Sorry. Second, what you asked, if it is there, sorry,
If
repeat.
so, should sand be sprinkled?
Okay. So, suppose if we are going for swimming pool waterproofing, where the vertical surface, if you are spraying polyurea. So, what happens is for subsequent treatment, because polyurea alone will not fit for swimming pool waterproofing because there is a chloride shocks will be there. Because swimming pool, they use a lot of chlorides to purify the water continuously. So what we need to do, either we have to put the tiles as per the specification on the waterproofing membranes of polyurea. As you said rightly, to have an adhesion, what we do is we give one coat of the intercoat adhesion primer on that and sprinkle the sands before we use S1 grade or S2 grade tile adhesives and go with the tiles on that. That is the reason.
That's good. So that means it needs another kind of adhesion promoting layer to sprinkle the sand on, basically. Great,
Yeah,
thank
because
you.
this is if we, yeah, thank you.
The next question, I think you have partly answered in this one. It's from Mr. Pankaj Singh. Are polyurea coatings UV stable, or do we need to UV protect coat? So I think this you have already answered, that we
Yeah,
need a aliphatic
yeah,
coat on top of
uh,
it.
yeah.
And
Specifically, yeah.
can I go to the next one? Sorry.
Please, you
The
can.
next one is from Mr. Kaushal Pandey. It says, if minimum thickness of coating is 1.5 mm, then why is 1.2 mm HDP membranes promoted in the market? Is there a difference between guidelines for pre-applied membranes and cold-applied coatings?
Yeah, see, HDPE membranes, what we talk is a preform membranes which will have a uniform thickness and which goes below ground level. This is all liquid applied membranes which will be sprayed, which will be get cured and form as a membrane to perform. So for to have a specific property of this, to have a factor of safety of application at site with the profile of concrete and the all other mechanical property tested in the laboratory with the minimum thickness is designed because of 1.5 mm. Because when we do surface preparation, concrete profile itself will create an issue if it is a thinner coating. It get punctured or it may not cover or it may not give the minimum thickness to make it watertight. That's the ideas behind it.
So I think that's quite clear. And the last question that we have again is from Mr. Rakesh. Is really high mechanical properties required, like 14 MPa tensile strength materials, when concrete normally does not exhibit such tensile forces?
Yeah,
Is
brilliant question. This is most interesting. What happens in my presentation? Anywhere we design the product to make it dynamic crack bridging ability. That is number one. So by doing that for the high performance, we might end up 11 MPa, 12 MPa, or even 10 MPa. That is fine. That is what I'm telling. When we pass EN standards for crack bridging ability, if you take ABC products, even 11 MPa also passes, even 13 MPa. Okay. So we should not see as a standalone tensile property of that. But when we have to see of polyurea, very high tensile property is required when it is subjected to heavy impact because of the mechanical properties. Like for example, polyurea is used as an coating for the explosion resistance in the oil refineries and then for the buildings in the army, for the bunkers, everywhere they use. Okay, they use like that, they require a very, very high tensile to sustain that impacts. So in those aspects, polyurea, they will be designing even 16, 18 MPa and all. When it comes to waterproofing, I'm very clear. I will never see that as a standalone. However, the ranges it goes from 10 to 13 MPa anywhere for the hybrid polyurea. That is good enough to pass the dynamic crack bridging ability, and then it can sustain the stresses at the bond line when there is a thermal moments in the concrete slab.
Okay, great. So I think that that really made for quite an interesting, quite an interactive session overall. So I would like to say once again, Mr. Ravindra Babu, thank you very very much for the talk today, and I hope it was quite interesting for our viewers as well. And we really look forward to having you at our next session, which will be somewhere mid September. So see you all. I think thank you once again from CCMA and everyone here. Ravindra Babu sir, thank you very much, and see you all soon.
Thank you
So
very much once again from my side. I hope this is a brilliant platform to improve upon our offers, our quality, our understanding on specification, and it is every time a learning session for me on this platform. Thank you very much. I wish you all safe working and safe stay. Thank you very much.
thank you, sir. See you all soon, and see everybody pretty soon. Thank you from Sunny
Thank
Surlakar.
you.
Have a good evening. Thanks.